49ers continue to shake some things up on the roster, some minor moves, new names in, some kind of new names already out. And could they make an even bigger swing in either free agency or a trade on today's Locked On 49ers?
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Coach Crocky. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us. And if you're new to the program, welcome. Consider hitting that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. And some more roster moves continue to churn the back end of the roster, Croc. And apparently the 49ers didn't love what they saw from Equanimous St. Brown. He was around for about a week, and they have now made a couple of moves, adding Andy Isabella to the wide receiver room and also bringing in veteran running back Amir Abdullah, who, Croc, that was one of my draft crushes way back in the day before he came into the NFL, drafted, I believe, by the Detroit Lions, and has had a nice little career, sort of change of pace guy, special teams guy, can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. Hasn't quite gotten the traction as a true number one running back like I thought he could be, despite being undersized coming out of Nebraska. But what are your thoughts on the newest 49ers in Andy Isabella and Amir Abdullah before we start talking about some other bigger names that people are clamoring about that the 49ers should potentially add?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is, why aren't they going after guys like Amari Cooper, who there was a fake report that he retired. Amari Cooper has not officially retired from the NFL. But Amari Cooper, Gabriel Davis, what's another name that's out there?
Keenan Allen is one I've seen a lot.
Keenan Allen, right?
Yeah.
Those are guys that you sign because you see a role in your offense for them, and they're going to contribute for the upcoming season. Those are typically not names that you bring in because you have guys that are banged up in training camp. In that situation, you bring in the St. Browns or the Andy Isabella, those type of guys who aren't a threat to any of the guys that you have roles for. You know, you sign Amari Cooper. What does that do for Ricky Pearsall's role? What does that do for Juwan Jennings' role? What does that do for Brandon Ayuk role when he returns? So those aren't guys that you sign now. Now, if let's say there's a setback with Brandon Ayuk, they'll be calling a Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper or Gabriel Davis. But as long as there's no setbacks and he's on track to return whenever they believe he is, and Juwan Jennings, he's going to recover from this injury, and Ricky Pearsall, he's healthy, he's ready to go, you will not see one of those big name guys get in here. So you'll see the Andy Isabellas. And for those guys, I tweeted this out. This is a dream for those kind of free agents. It's an absolute dream because you get opportunity, an opportunity that a lot of guys don't get during training camp. When everybody's just healthy, you have your guys that's first string, second string, third string, or like wide receiver 1, 2, 3 that have their roles. And the guys like the Andy Isabellas that come in late, or even a guy like my guy, Isaiah Hodgins, they typically don't get a lot of opportunities. So this is a big chance for Hodgins and Isabella and those guys to potentially earn either a spot on the active roster or an opportunity to play on the practice squad. So that's what those guys are fighting for right now.
It's interesting what the 49ers are telling us by the players that they're bringing in. The Equanimous St. Browns and Andy Isabellas and Russell Gage, and even, and Isaiah Hodges. These guys are veteran players that aren't like undrafted rookies that they're bringing in to just churn and run routes on the roster. They're bringing in veterans that they think have a chance. I think that they want to maybe look like players that could make the roster, but they're also, so while they're not, just complete camp fodder, undrafted free agents that they're just kind of taking a look at and letting them run routes. So they're veteran players that have played in the league that they think could earn a roster spot potentially. They're also not bringing in guys like you mentioned with the Gabe Davises and Keenan Allens that would be clearly someone who would be part of the game plan and demand a little bit more money and demand a certain amount of targets, and someone you would bring in to be one of your top 3 wide receivers, very likely. And so I think they're telling us that they like their group at the top, but they're also looking at it like, man, we know we need to have depth and players that can play in a football and have proven that they can do that, because we're not completely sure about our guy at the top being healthy and being available. And I think the 49ers plan right now is they're really hoping that Pearsall looks good, stays healthy through camp, Juwan Jennings is on the field healthy, and that they can limp to the period of the season where Brandon Ayuk comes back, and then they'll feel really good about their top guys. Now, is that too much hope and too much crossing your fingers by the 49ers? I don't know, but that clearly is the plan, because they're not discussing these other name wide receivers, and that won't happen unless we see a significant injury, someone like Pearsall or Juwan Jennings.
Go back to 2019, right? And look at how the 49ers entered that season. They had a rookie by the name of Deebo Samuel, and I'm pretty sure they had some high hopes for him and what he could be. There were also other guys, Richie James, Jalen Hurd, Marquise Goodwin, who had a terrific season the year before, Kendrick Bourne, all right, a guy that was entering his third season, 17, 18, 19, yep, third season, right? Trent Taylor. There were guys that they felt like, all right, we want to give these guys every opportunity and see how well they do with this. Well, it was clear early on, you may need a little bit more. That's when you go get the veteran that's going to come in here and have a huge role. And during that season, it was Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders came in and immediately was one of the 49ers kind of go-to guys. And he leapfrogged a lot of the other names on the roster. You brought him in to serve a purpose, and a big purpose, not to just fill a void because there were current injuries. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if there were any injuries or any devastating injuries at that time, but it was clear we need more than Marquise Goodwin, Kendrick Bourne, Deebo, and rookie Deebo Samuel, and Trent Taylor. Right? We need more than that. So they went and got somebody that was able to give them more. That's more of the role of the Amari Cooper, Gabriel Davis, Keenan Allen, that type of guy. They just happen to be free agents right now, as opposed to being a receiver on the Denver Broncos like Emmanuel Sanders was.
And now rookie wide receiver Jordan Watkins, who's had a lot of opportunities to try to get a foothold in his rookie camp, which is tough to do in the NFL, tough for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers on the injury report. So that leads us to another conversation. I want to talk about another really big name guy in Micah Parsons next. Croc that has now asked for a trade, and the contract talks have completely fallen apart for the Cowboys and Micah Parsons. But Terry McLaurin is a name who is also in a contract dispute with the Washington Commanders. We know there's a clear line of communication between the Washington Commanders and the San Francisco 49ers. Should the 49ers consider making a big move that might not have been in the plans, just to make sure that they don't have this problem this season and potentially going forward at wide receiver? Because if you trade for someone like Terry McLaurin, you have to give him a new contract as well. And what would that say about their thoughts about the future with Brandon Ayuk, who we've already heard reports that maybe, they might not be wanting to finish that contract out anyway?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? I mean, you see Scary Terry, he's available for trade, and the reason why is because obviously he wants a new contract. So if you're the 49ers, that's something that you want to get involved with. And I'd say 49ers probably leaning in the opposite direction of that. Obviously it would be awesome to have Scary Terry, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. I actually really love that receiver room right there. And then you kind of throw in a young guy, Watkins, if healthy and whatnot. But realistically, you're already paying Brandon Ayuk a boatload of money. I don't see you giving new money to Scary Terry. All right, Terry McLaurin. I don't see that being the case. That would be a lot of money allocated to the receiver room on top of whatever happens with Juwan Jennings, which I'd assume they're trying to work out some extension that would make him happy. So, for a group to be getting paid as much money as those three guys would, in a team that's not pass happy. I mean, I don't care what anybody tells me. Look at the passing attempts last year by the 49ers, and that was in a season where you won 6 games. Like, you won 6 games and still probably middle to the pack in passing attempts, probably even, I don't know, like bottom 10. I would say probably somewhere roughly in that range. If that's the case, that's a team that's not looking to throw the ball a whole lot. And I bring up the wins because typically when you're playing behind, you're just throwing the ball more. And that still didn't fluff up their passing attempts. So to be a team that's not heavily dependent on throwing the ball around a lot, like maybe the Cincinnati Bengals, and that you're just going to pay all these pass catchers that you don't expect to really prioritize in the offense in a way that would justify paying them the amount of dollars that they would get, is just something I don't see happening. I'd see them just throw the ball more to Christian McCaffrey before going and trading for a guy like Terry McLaurin, who, again, I would love that. I just don't see it happening.
I mean, even if Brandon Ayuk was fully healthy and so was everybody else in the wide receiver group, I still would put the number one wide receiver probably comfortably behind George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey as far as the portion of the offense that I think Kyle Shanahan envisions ultimately. But you still would like your full power passing game and wide receivers on the outside to go along with those guys. And look, those guys have had times that they're banged up in the NFL as well. We just saw Christian McCaffrey. Don't know exactly what he's going to be after a season of injuries for him. So more moves potentially that could happen for the San Francisco 49ers. Micah Parsons. Could the 49ers shock the world next? This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. And in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And man, sometimes you will be shocked by what you are spending on certain things in your life that you don't really need to once you really start tracking your spending. And how about managing your money with your partner that is made so much easier day to day with Monarch Money? So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. I want to go into the chat here for a second, and I agree with both Jesus and Khalil in the chat. Let's start with Jesus. He says top 3 wide receiver options have all missed time this offseason. Shouldn't expect Ayuk to come out rolling from an ACL plus that he's been dealing with. Allen or Cooper could take 1-year deals. And that's my question here is, Gabe Davis. Didn't Gabe Davis go on the radio and say that he wants to be a 49er, and that was his top choice? How much would it actually cost to bring in another veteran wide receiver, and how demanding would, Keenan Allen, who, and someone said that he's apparently maybe going to sign with the Chargers. We'll find out there. Would he want to come back to the Bay Area? He went to school at Cal. Would Keenan Allen demand that he has a certain amount of touches, or does he want to be on a good football team late in his career, right? Amari Cooper, what would he demand in salary? Could you get these guys on a 1-year deal that makes sense, that just makes you feel like you feel a lot better about having a veteran wide receiver? And we still don't know what Brandon Ayuk's going to look like. It was a devastating injury that he had to his knee. It's not just an ACL injury. And then Khalil, this is something I've been talking about for a year. And remember all the stuff with Brandon Ayuk last year, and there were reports where, okay, the 49ers might be okay with what they're getting for Brandon Ayuk, but then they also need a wide receiver back. And my response to that was, well, you got Debo, you got Juwan Jennings, you got a first-round wide receiver. Let's see what you got from your guys first. Then there's always the trade deadline. And lo and behold, like 3 weeks into the year, all of a sudden Devontae Adams is available and all these other players are available. Like, you don't have to be done today on August 1st is I think the big thing. So I like that the 49ers aren't in a rush to do anything necessarily. And as Khalil points out, maybe once you're in contention, you can go make that move at the deadline if the things don't work out like you hope with your current group of wide receivers.
Yeah, and that would be the 2019 recipe. I would say I am not opposed to maybe a Keenan Allen. Get Scary Terry. I think Terry McLaurin, that's way out there. I don't see that happening. But, or if you just said, look, we need to figure out a way to, one, stay afloat. And who knows, maybe Keenan Allen or Gabriel Davis takes the pressure off of other guys that contribute at a high level now. You just mentioned Devontae Adams. if you look at Devontae Adams, like first few years in the NFL, like, it wasn't anything crazy. Well, those guys like, Jordy Nelson and some of those guys that took the pressure off of him having to be this super, stat hogging type of guy. So you bring in Keenan Allen to go with these guys. He's going to play a lot, start the season. Halfway through, you got Brandon Ayuk. I think even then it doesn't make it to where Ayuk has the pressure of having to be Ayuk that we've known him to be. You can ease into this, get a couple of targets a game or whatnot. And come playoff time, you kind of got some horses there to really, really make really a playoff push going deep, because now you got more targets and now guys are healthier because you don't have to rush anyone back and they have the role. So I could see that happening. But again, I just go to kind of the 49ers and their target shares. How much sense does it make for Kyle Shanahan when he's not really throwing the ball or dialing up that many targets? Now, maybe they changed something up and they're starting to throw the ball more. If that's a thought, then great. But watching their preseason, their training camp and what they were doing, probably keeping it very vanilla, not putting a whole lot out there. Clearly no game planning, but it seemed like a lot of what we're used to seeing from the 49ers in their offense. I didn't, you don't know what they're always working on. Clearly that day it was kind of inside, outside zone stretch and then throws off of stretch action. So maybe that was more specific to that day and they're doing more throwing the ball around than some of the other practices. But yeah, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I wouldn't be opposed to a 1-year rental while someone else is continuing to try to get healthy.
Right. And then DeMarcus Robinson, probably a 3-week suspension, which is why that signing has always been weird for me. But you'd feel better about knowing that he's going to be there and could be a starter for you for a few weeks to bridge the gap after the first few weeks of the season to when Brandon Ayuk comes back. So you do have some depth and you have levels of, okay, you get one guy back after 3 weeks and you get another guy back after 6 weeks. And then you start to feel a lot better about the group and maybe you don't need to do that. And so, and you don't have to make a move today unless all those veteran wide receivers get swooped up. And then you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, we're in dire straits and it's week 2 of the NFL season, which is really the thing that you don't want to happen for the 49ers. But obviously the roster is a living and breathing thing, and you can add to it at any time before the trade deadline as well. So Tyreek is a name thrown out there. And I would put Tyreek and, Terry McLaurin in the pipe dream category. If that's the case, Croc, listeners are asking us, Micah Parsons asking for a trade from the Dallas Cowboys. What category would you put a Micah Parsons trade in for the San Francisco 49ers, Croc?
I think the addition of Bryce Huff, look, I'm just butchering this guy's name, Bryce Huff. I think that kind of squashes any addition of an outside edge rusher. I would love to get Micah Parsons is a very, very, very special player, and he has a very unique set of traits. This is a guy that was drafted as kind of a hybrid off-ball linebacker / ability to rush the passer, and he's kind of turned into more of just a pure edge rusher. But his speed and that speed to power that he possesses, and just the strength too. I mean, he would be intriguing. But the Huff trade, I think it ends all that kind of talks.
I mean, money's a big issue, and you'd have to pay Micah Parsons $40 million per year, right? Which is the biggest hurdle. But
was that $74 million a year devoted to edge rushers?
Dude, and still I would do that and say, here's our next 2 first-round picks. Like that's how important that is and how impactful it would be. Can you imagine Bosa and Micah Parsons? But you just spent a first-round pick on a defensive end, right? And so it's like, and look, the Cowboys owe the 49ers one for the Charles Haley trade 30-something years ago, whenever that was. Return the favor, 0 chance. I mean, even then, if you're willing to pay $40 million and give them 2 first-round picks, the Cowboys aren't going to send Micah Parsons to the 49ers. Get real. I saw a list of teams that were like the highest Vegas odds for for where Micah Parsons plays in 2025. And the Cowboys were still number 1. And number 2 was like the Eagles, and the Niners were up there. I was like, are you crazy? There's no chance they would trade. The New England Patriots, maybe. Send him to the AFC, a team that might give you a high draft pick back. That starts to make sense. But The Eagles or the Niners? No way. No chance. So, look, I know it's fun to dream, but, man, Micah Parsons, Terry McLaurin, they're not going to be 49ers this year. Maybe McLaurin if something crazy happens with other injuries on the 49ers and this contract dispute starts to get really, really bad with the Commanders. It's not a 0.0% chance. Micah Parsons, 0.0. Terry McLaurin, 0.1. Put it that way.
JM617 says, Fanbase wants brand name with Jet York having great value mentality. First of all, nothing wrong with Great Value. I love Great Value Walmart brands. So shout out to Great Value. Would love to have them to be a sponsor of the show. But I can't quite say that for Jet York because he has given them ability to go out there and get some big name guys. Like they traded for Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't get much bigger of a name at the trade deadline, especially than CMC, something that people kind of threw out there, but I don't know if anybody thought it was realistic. 49ers landed him. Chase Young, that was a big name at the trade deadline, especially at that time. You know, he was the number 1 overall pick to the Washington Commanders. And 49ers said, yeah, we have a need for edge rushers. They went and got him, Randy Gregory.
Trent Williams?
Who?
Trent Williams?
Trent Williams? Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that Jed is opposed to allowing his front office to trade for big names. I think it has to make sense. And if you look at all those scenarios, Jimmy Garoppolo at the trade deadline, right? You look at all those scenarios, it just made a ton of sense at the time. I don't see them forcing something. I think that's sometimes the difference between maybe how front office and Jay York are thinking and the fan base. They are not going to force things, especially right now. They got guys banged up. They don't have guys where, he tore his ACL, he's done for the season. That's not it. It's like, a little tight here, a little tight there. All right, let's just get these guys to week 1 and see what happens from there.
And the 49ers of this offseason was kind of all about that reset button a little bit and telling us about, okay, we're going to pay these guys. And then we got to figure out a cheaper way to rebuild the roster with draft picks. And these moves would be going in the exact opposite direction of what they already set out their path to be this offseason, which makes those kind of things even more unlikely, even if some of the other things did line up for the San Francisco 49ers and they were able to spend what they needed in resources to go make those deals happen. A really bummer of a story coming out today. Greg Papa, voice of the San Francisco 49ers, with a cancer diagnosis. So I want to talk a little bit about that and time to rally around one of our own in Greg Papa and some notes on the Hall of Fame game. Trey Lance making an appearance as well. Next. It's time to fire it up, whether you're on the golf course, whatever you're trying to do, fuel up, turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. If you're a golfer, you know that transfusions have become like the most popular drink on a golf course, maybe behind a Bloody Mary or beer. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. And I know for me, I get a little low on energy in the back nine because I've been trying to walk the course, not taking the cart around. I need to get my steps in, right? And so a pick me up like a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion on the back nine is absolutely huge, or maybe before a late night softball game. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. That is promo code LOCKEDONGolf for 20% off. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with your friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order Transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. So terrible news out of the 49ers family, the KMBR family as well. A guy that I've talked to on KMBR a few times and always had really pleasant conversations with Greg Papa, who has been the voice of the 49ers after he was a longtime announcer, play-by-play for the then Oakland Raiders. And Pop made the announcement himself through KMBR today. He said, "Hi there, everyone. Greg Papa here, host of KMBR, the sports leaders Papa and Silver and voice of the San Francisco 49ers. I want to share some personal news with Bay Area sports fans and my friends and colleagues. I've been diagnosed with cancer and am currently undergoing treatment. As I fully focus on my treatment and work toward a full recovery, I'm stepping away from my broadcasts, but look forward to returning soon. In the meantime, I'm handing the Sports Leader broadcast ball over to my co-host friend, Greg Silver, and I know he and his guest co-hosts will keep our listeners entertained and informed. Thanks to everyone for your prayers and good wishes as I begin this fight. Go Niners. So that was from Greg Papa, August 1st, and the 49ers made a statement about it as well. And terrible news. I mean, I just went through this last year with my father in cancer, and I know how tough it can be, and I know how strong you have to be to fight this thing. And I don't know any more details on Greg Papa's cancer diagnosis, but I just did want to take the chance to, wish him the best. And we're really rooting for and rallying around Greg Papa in this time. And really hope to hear him back calling games for the San Francisco 49ers at some point very soon.
It's devastating. And I've met some people who got cancer, and just the battle, the fight, is just so tiresome that they're just elected to not even, do any of the things that could really help prolong their lives. So, I'm definitely praying for him, his family, as they go through this time, and definitely hope that, he has a speedy recovery from all this and can get back to calling 49er touchdowns, because I definitely enjoy listening to that.
Absolutely. I want to go to the chat a little bit here, and the folks want to know what we think about Trey Lance and his performance. A couple touchdown passes in the Hall of Fame game for the Los Angeles Chargers. And it's funny because my first immediate takeaway, and I was actually live streaming yesterday evening as the game was about to kick off with Jason Aponte, and Harbaugh did the whole pound the shoulder pads, push him, pump him up. And it's funny because I really think that alone is what maybe Trey Lance needs the most, aside from actual reps and playing football, because he still played so little football. It's insane at this point through college and his NFL career. But he looked a lot more confident. He kind of going through the motions and dumping some stuff down to the running back a lot, some screen passes, little rollout here, nice little throw to Will Dissly, tight end, touchdown pass. But then he let a couple go, and nice touch passes down the football field on the sideline. And so good for Trey Lance. He looked solid out there in, playing against scrubs. It's the preseason Hall of Fame game. There's not a exhibition game that means less in the NFL than that Hall of Fame game. But it was funny because just his demeanor, and we've seen it with, Kaepernick and Alex Smith. And I think Harbaugh being around Alex Smith helped him out so much, that confidence, pounding him on the shoulder pads. And even then, like, Trey Lance kind of, aw shucks, looking at the ground while Jim Harbaugh is pounding him on the shoulders. Like, it's really probably the best place you could possibly imagine for Trey Lance. It was nice to see him play well. Beyond that, no other takeaways. Let's be real about it.
I don't have much takeaway from it either. I think the big thing is you got stacked days. We had a good day at practice yesterday. My high school kids, and it was fun. It was exciting. The energy was up, and there were some guys. Some of the leaders stood up afterwards and talked about the practice and, hey, good practice, guys, yada yada. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but we got to do it again. Like, we got to do it again tomorrow. Like, you can't have that kind of practice, and then the next day I'm looking around like, what the hell happened? And I'm getting on you guys. The energy needs to stay there. And it's the same for Trey Lance. Okay, solid showing in the Hall of Fame game. All right, Trey, you got to do it again and again and again. And that's what the good quarterbacks do. We look at Brock Purdy. I think every practice right now, if you just look at the reports, Brock Purdy, he's serving. He's balling, looking good. He's on target. He's completing it, stacking days. He does it time and time again. That's what a good quarterback does. So maybe for Lance, it would be good for his confidence to have that kind of showing in front of everyone. I saw, I was late to it and then ended up having to kind of rewatch, especially the first half. But I scrolled social media and saw a lot of people saying, "Oh man, Trey Lance." I'm like, man, what do you do? I'm looking. I'm like, oh, okay, nice little stat line: 9 for 11 in the first half, 2 touchdowns, had a couple nice deep balls that he was throwing. hopefully it just helps his confidence. And for all these guys, it's not just Trey Lance. It's any guys out there that have a dream. Like I'm rooting for him. I definitely don't feel bad for dude. He made like $37 million off his rookie contract. So I don't feel bad for him, but it's always good to see a guy, try to live out his dream. And that's what he's doing.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit Croc and I up on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky, or in the YouTube comments if there's something you want us to hit specifically. Saw some questions about the kicking competition. I think we're going to wait till Winky Wednesday and really do a special teams dive, because he is our he's our special teams correspondent. And I really want to hear what Wink thinks about the kicking competition. We'll be able to start talking about some preseason 49ers games as well very soon here on Locked On 49ers. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subbed up, and Croc and I will talk to you next time right here, Locked On 49ers.